Hello, welcome friends to my channel Annie's English. Today we are going to study chapter 3 from the Gulmohar textbook for class 7. The name of the chapter is Maggie Cuts Her Hair. Before we begin the chapter, let me ask you a few questions. Have you ever taken a hasty decision and then regretted? Maybe yes, maybe no. But the protagonist of our lesson, Maggie, regrets a decision she makes in haste. This lesson is an extract taken from the novel The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot. Let us throw some more light on the author. George Eliot, you may be quite surprised to know, isn't a man. In fact, it is the pen name of Mary Ann Evans, an English novelist. Today's story revolves around a young girl named Maggie, who's often scolded by her mother for her untidy hair. Frustrated by this, Maggie decides to take things into her own hands. This is where our chapter or our lesson begins. A dinner is hosted by Mr. and Mrs. Tulliver, Maggie's parents, for their relatives, the Gleggs, the Pewlets, Deanne, and Lucy. Once again, Mrs. Tulliver scolds Maggie for her untidy hair. Infuriated, Maggie takes the matters into her own hands. Running to her mother's room with a large pair of scissors, she cuts her unruly hair with the assistance of her brother Tom. Tom, who was hesitant at first, thoroughly enjoyed this act later. He finds great joy in the forbidden pleasure of cutting the horse's mane. Maggie feels insecure and a sense of freedom after she cuts her hair, but she is mocked at by Tom, who tells her to have a look in the mirror and then run downstairs because he wants to have the dainty dishes at the table. One glance in the mirror and Maggie is devastated. Terrified by her decision, her cheeks grow pale and her lips tremble. All Maggie wanted all her life was that people should think that she was a clever girl and not scold her. But here she was, looking terrible and awful. In utter despair among her hair, Maggie sat there, weeping and helpless. She did not want to go back down. Even Keziah, the maid, was shocked to see her in such a sorry state. Finally, Maggie gathered up all her courage and presented herself at the table. Her poor mother was aghast to look at her. She dropped the spoon into the dish. Maggie looked so unruly that each member at the table had something loathsome to say about her and her hair. They used phrases like, "Whip naughty girls," "Feed them only with bread and water," "Put them in prison," or "Don't bring them down to bring among us." Maggie's endurance broke down. She ran to her father and burst into tears. Her father was the only person who comforted her and spoke delightful words of tenderness to her. He said, "You're in the right to cut it off if it troubled you." This gave Maggie a sigh of relief. The extract ends over here. But we do realize something from the story, that Maggie was an impulsive girl who did not plan her decisions, but in fact took sudden and wild decisions which later she had to regret for. She proved that haste makes waste.